one of the things I like about what we're talking about today is that some of the framework that we're going to lay out that we've used, you can also use it. They're winning tactics, so to speak, in terms of accomplishing your financial goals, but they're movable and they're interchangeable, and you can figure out how they're going to work for your situation.
Welcome back. We're in week 2 of our Love and Money series. I can't wait to get into it. Let's go. Hey, if we're just meeting for the first time, my name is Gabriel Walters and I'm a certified financial planner. I'm also the founder and owner of Steadyworth. And today, again, we have a special guest, which is my wife, Laura Walters. How do you feel, babe, about being back for the second week in a row?
I'm fired up. This is my favorite topic.
Yes, so we love connecting and talking about goals, love, money, all of that stuff because we own a company that does that. So anyway, so last week we talked about knowing yourself, getting on the same page, and compatibility. This week we're going to talk about once you get on the same page, then what? Because, if you think of this in a sports analogy, if you have a coach and he has two different coaches with different teams, just because they are playing the same game, they both have players and all the same equipment, they have two different ways that they're going to execute their winning strategy. So today we're going to go over how you can execute a winning strategy. What are your thoughts?
Who doesn't love a winning strategy? That's what I think.
Exactly. So what are you most excited about with today's topic?
Well, one of my favorite things is, we all have different situations and we all have different goals, different values. So we may have the same goal of moving to a new city, buying a house, but there's 1,000 different ways we can do that. Like your sports analogy, there's similar tactics, but how you apply them can be very different depending on your situation and who you are and what you value. So one of the things I like about what we're talking about today is that some of the framework that we're going to lay out that we've used, you can also use it. They're winning tactics, so to speak, in terms of accomplishing your financial goals, but they're movable and they're interchangeable, and you can figure out how they're going to work for your situation. So that's what I'm really excited about. I just feel like there's so much uniqueness out there that I think having something simple to hang on to kind of get where you're going is important.
So we're about to just hop right into it. Okay, so to go over a winning strategy, what we're going to be using today is, I'm going to flash this on the screen. We're going to be using Steadyworth's financial planning pyramid. And so this pyramid has a few different points that we're going to talk through, show you how we use them and apply them to our situation, and how you can use them to apply them to your situation to develop your winning strategy. So let's go. So right now, here it is. It is made up of 3 levels and 9 different components. Level 1, which is income, assets, and debt in relation to your goal. So this is level 1. So we're just gonna talk through some of the stuff that we had to think about. So first, let's just lay out our story. Okay, so if you watched last week's video, we were starting to date. I was starting a business, and so while we're dating, I'm working on the idea of starting the business. We're both still working. And so as that gets going, if something comes up where I'm like, okay, I need to make this big spend. And when I have to make this big spend on the business, I can't have this just be a hobby. I'm gonna actually have to leave my job and to do this thing full time. So then we're talking through, what does that look like while we're dating, and / what would that look like in a relationship? So then we start looking at possibly getting married. So I'm just gonna let you hop in because I don't want to tell the whole story, because sometimes she tells it a lot better than I do. So I just want to hop in. So in level 1, we're talking about income, assets, and debt in relation to your goals. So we have this goal because at this time we had literally just started marriage counseling. We weren't going to this is 2021. We weren't going to get married till 2022. And then, as we're working through these goals, so what would you say our high level goals were at the time?
Okay, so if we're scaling back to a couple years ago, this company was in its infant stages, so like idea only. And so when we started dating, I knew that this was something that you wanted to do. And as we started to progress and build this out, this was the primary goal, was starting the business. So like our number one goal was, how can we get you to quit your job and start this business? Because I just felt like this was such a passion of yours. And so it was like, we could have an extra income and you could live a passionless life and I would receive the side effects of that, or you could really go for it and we can make it happen. So basically that was our primary big goal, is like, start this business. Secondarily, we were thinking about getting married. And so I guess not secondarily. I mean, I think they were like
They just
all
weren't
in
at the same
conversation.
time, right?
Yeah. But, you know, in order to quit your job, this as non-romantic as this sounds, you know, health insurance is a big deal.
Yeah, and also because I just want to just interject real quick just to say, when I started 2021, I was like, by the end of this year, I want to be in position to quit my job.
Yes.
That was one of the goals, but I didn't say by the end of this year, I want to be married. I said I wanted to finish marriage counseling, but end up getting married by the end. So I got the double bonus in 2021. The double. Okay, so,
but again, this was kind of all about, we were working together, right? So like, what are our options if our number one goal is to have you leave your job and eventually get married? What makes the most sense, right? So not everyone is this practical. Not everyone is this flexible. So just keep that in mind. These are things that I value and I enjoy. So that played into what our plan was, right? So we were like, okay, we know for sure we want to get married. So why don't we just get married? That way you can be on my health insurance. We don't have to worry about it. You don't have to pay Cobra, and you can dump all of that money back into the business. So our thought there was, in the infant stages, you have to put a lot of money into a business to get it to go.
right. So let's rewind back.
So our number one goal was to have Gabe quit his job and start the business, start Steadyworth. Our second goal was to get married, whether that was in 2021 or 2022, that we were still undecided there. And then
I think we were pretty clear that we were going to do it in 2022. I thought was at one point.
Yes, I mean, at that point we were sure it would be in 2022. That didn't happen, so that's why I'm saying that. But yeah,
okay.
So those were our two primary goals for 2021.
So that's the goal, and then we have to go through our income, assets, and debt in relation to the goal.
So what I would say here, right, is like, if we're just thinking about like, okay, we're on the same page, right, which is last week. We got on the same page and it's like, okay, these are our goals. This is where we're trying to go. So how we get there is trying to assess like income, right? Because if you don't have any income, you can't accomplish any of your goals, right? That's a line from your book.
That's right. She's been listening.
So, you know, we kind of wanted to assess like that level one pyramid, part of the pyramid, which is your income, your assets, and your debt. So the first thing we really looked at was like, okay, am I making enough money to support both of us for a small period of time while he quits, gets the business going, etc. And I think the answer to that at the time was yes. So we were able to like kind of look to the next thing. And so I'll let you talk about assets a little bit, because this was your idea and your plan.
So one of the thoughts, because actually it was my idea to get married, even though we were looking at getting married in 2022, actually, of course, yes, I did propose, and it was my idea to get married as a whole, but it was my idea I changed from 2022 to 2021 for multiple reasons. But so the first thing that I started putting into play is we look at assets. So one of the assets I had, which was an asset and a liability at the same time, was a car. I had a Toyota Camry, and at that time, used cars were trading at a premium. So what I did was I sold my car, which got me out of my auto loan. It also allowed me to get probably a little bit over $7,000 cash out of the transaction that I could put towards starting the business. And so, and then also, of course, you know, in assets, we both had brokerage accounts that we were already investing in. We had retirement accounts. We both have 401ks from previous jobs and our current jobs. And for debt, I had some student loans. Laura has some student loans, and we don't have any credit card. We didn't have any, either of us didn't have any credit card debt.
Yeah, I took my student loans private because they were small. So when the student loan paused, I was still paying those, but it was at like a reasonable amount. So I think the fact that your student loans, which are a little bit heftier, were on pause, we were able to have a little bit more flexibility in what we were doing because we didn't have to have that monthly payment as well. So that was kind of like the base assessment of where we were at.
Sure. And so we looked at this, you know, this pyramid, or what we as we were building this out, we looked at this pyramid. So we looked at income, assets, and debt in relation to our goal. And even as you do the same, if you look at your income, assets, and debt in relation to your goal, it will show you how close you are to either accomplishing that goal or how far you are from accomplishing that goal. So we knew, just to recap really quick, that we had Laura's income. It was enough that would push us after I quit my job. I had a decent savings, sold the car, so I'm lowering expenses to up that assets category. Debt with student loans were on pause. We're still paying some of hers at this time, which are much lower, and private with a lower interest rate. And so things are cruising clear to our goal. So next we're gonna hop right into level 2, which is lifestyle expenses, taxes, and savings. And so lifestyle expenses lifestyle is not funny. Lifestyle expenses is the money you spend on food, funds, survival, all of your stuff. And so, so the next thought in this is, how can we get our lifestyle expenses down? Which one part was lifestyle expenses was the car, which was also related to assets. Was there any other budgeting or cutting back, or what would you say were some of the other lifestyle expenses that we worked through?
Well, I think number one, like I had a way in which I tracked expenses before we kind of merged everything. And so we took one sitting and we actually merged everything. We said, okay, how much do you have? How much do I have? Kind of what's our joint net value or net worth or whatever the term is, right? And then we actually built a budget out based on that. So I would say we kind of combined that and assessed like, okay, how would our expenses change now that we're doing everything kind of together or jointly? And then there was one other thing. In terms of like lowering, one thing that we didn't mention around income, but definitely helped with the lifestyle expenses, was I actually was a resident manager at the time. So I had a discounted rent. And that played heavily into just keeping our lifestyle expenses low, because that's obviously one of your bigger expenses. So,
sure.
Yeah.
So lifestyle expenses were, and like I mentioned, I think in yesterday's video, we still did have some other big expenses, such as Laura's training, and I can't think of what the other ones were right now. But also in some hobbies. But we had some hobbies that we were doing. But and then of course just living life, eating out, this and that. But there's some trade-offs, especially when you have a big goal of starting a business and that you're losing an income. So we had to really think strategically about, it's not that we would never do any of those hobbies or other stuff, but it's like, hey, we want to put money into this, so how are we going to pause some of this other stuff? And so when we look at taxes, so with the taxes, we thought about this. So it's like, so now I don't have an income, and she has an income, but I have all these business expenses. So with that, we looked at some different tax strategies, spoke to a CPA on how we could file our taxes. So the first year we ended up doing married filing separately, so that we could get the taxes filed so that the income could be lower. So just in case they took the student loans out of deferment, then I could still have a lower paid, like I could show that I made less money, so then I could keep them on pause while we're still getting the business up and running and making more money. So, but once again, I don't know if you ever watched one of those action movies as a kid where they say, hey kids, don't try this at home. Don't try any tax strategies you hear me speaking about at home without first speaking to a CPA or a qualified tax person. So anything you see on the internet, don't try it until you speak to someone to make sure it works right for you, so that you can make sure you're executing it correctly and you don't hurt yourself. And so as we went through lifestyle expenses, taxes, and savings. So also with that actually allowed us to save some more money. And and then.
Well, I think this is also just where like making sure you have an emergency fund or some sort of backup for spillover as you're trying to figure things out, right? Because things don't really work out exactly how you think they are ever. So, making sure you have put some savings away, and we luckily have done that, or we had that. So we felt pretty comfortable with our plan and all the different things that we had in place, that we felt like we could accomplish some of the goals that we had set out. It was just a matter of doing it and managing it and keeping up with it, which we'll talk about in next week's video.
Sure. And then so now we're going to hop right on to level 3, which is insurance and estate planning. And so one of these big things actually, that was, I think that was a smoke alarm. But one of these big things as to what had us, what also prompted us what made sense for us to get married and not put the wedding off was just due to insurance. So since since if by me quitting my job, and if we had to put, by me quitting my job in 2021, if we had to put the wedding off to the summer of 2022, I'd had to pay Cobra insurance for multiple months. But if we got married earlier in the year, or get married in 21, then all of a sudden I can get on her insurance and not have to pay Cobra, which also saves us more money. And then also with estate planning, updating beneficiaries. So we got married. Actually, it was great because the insurance at the job that I had was good. It was lacking in some areas. So when I got on her insurance, it was much better. So that also just saved in co-payments. So
yeah, and I just from like the estate planning perspective too, like this was actually something that I had not really thought about at all. I mean, sort of before dating him and marrying him, and of course our fire alarm's battery is low and chirping in the back, so hopefully it's not too disruptive. But and so I actually didn't have designated beneficiaries on a lot of my accounts. And the ones that I did have were like my mom or my dad. So just kind of doing a sweep through all those accounts, because nowadays if you have a brokerage account, a 401k, a bank account, a savings account, all those things need a designated beneficiary. And so it is a very administrative thing that cannot be that fun, but is worth doing, especially if something that is unplanned happens. So
that's right. And so I'm just going to flash back to the financial planning pyramid. So we went through these 3 levels, these 9 things, and and it's great. And all of these things is, no matter what your situation is, your situation I'm sure is different than ours, but you can use all 9 of these components. All of these will directly affect you, and you can plug in what your truth is for these 9 components and how you want to strategize these 9 components to make sure you guys are going in the right direction to accomplish your goals. Because even though our stories are different, or even though the directions we're going are different, these 9 components still apply to you. So what would you say are some key takeaways you would give for this?
I would just kind of echo the fact that, we talked about this in the first video, and if you haven't watched it, it's totally fine.
We're going to flash to our sponsor real quick as we take a break, because we had to go stop the smoke alarm. So if you've been getting some value from this video, can you make sure to hit that like button, subscribe, ring the bell so you can be notified when we start new videos. Also, we have our main co-star coming back right now. Welcome. Yes. So we use these 9 components to organize our lives for our financial picture, to make sure that, once we were on the same page, to make sure that we were traveling in the same direction. And the great thing is that once you get on the same page and you're moving in the same direction, things can speed up a lot faster than what you're even expecting. Because what I'm so excited about is that, initially we were just going to get married in 2022, but in the summer of 2022, but really in the summer of 2022, we moved to Miami. So it's like, by getting married in 21, like, check that off the list. And then 22, move to Miami, keep going, other good things. So another thing is that by you and your partner going through Steadyworth's financial planning pyramid to get aligned with how you want to move forward, it gives you guys an objective third party that will walk you through different components to speak about, so that it's just guiding the exercise. And I found that to be helpful with other clients that we've worked with, is that when we are there, such as Steadyworth, when we're there with either on a call or they're working through one of our online financial planning courses, when they have that third party that's helping guide them to make sure that they're on the right path, it just helps promote the conversation to make things better, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, and one thing I would add to my professional background is actually in change management, so helping people move through change. And so I would say one thing that's always true when you decide to write down your goal and commit to something is either life gets crazy, or things start to pop up and get in your way, or you get in your way with some of the things that you're thinking, any limiting beliefs that you may be carrying. And so it's really easy, especially in your finances, and I've experienced this definitely before meeting Gabe and getting full financial planning knowledge all the time, is that it's really easy to feel lost and get lost when you don't have some sort of framework to use and or think through your financial situation, right? So I think a lot of times I was only thinking about the income I was making via my job. I wasn't ever thinking about different ways. I mean, I had 2 jobs at one point, but 3 jobs at one point if you count coaching. But so those were the only levers that I was using to make money, save money, build my assets, and that's all good and well, but there's other levers too that kind of help you see it through the big picture. And so when you do come up against those challenges or life gets messy, it's okay, and you can just come back to these elements and really ground yourself and be like, okay, where am I at? Which I think is really important, especially when you're striving to accomplish stuff and make things happen for your life and really like achieve what you want to.
Right. Yes. Okay. So what would you say would be some takeaways?
I think number one is to just sit down and write your goals out, right? So especially if your partner and you are on the same page and you're ready to go, you kind of know where you're at. The next thing is to really understand and articulate where you want to go. That is key. And I think the second takeaway is really to understand that your path, our path, your friend's path, your dad, your mom, your brother, sister's path is all different. You're different, your situation is different, your job is different, your values are different. And so I know it's really easy to get caught up in like, well, this worked for them or this worked for them. And it might work for you too, but don't start comparing. Like really sit down and think about like, what's gonna work for us? Like, what are we gonna stick to? Because I think if we compared ourselves to even some of our close friends, like we wouldn't be here necessarily. We wanted to really build something that worked for us. So those are like my two big takeaways, like write down where you wanna go and be okay forging your own path.
Yes. No, I absolutely agree. And I'd say, and as you get clear, you, of course, since we're talking about couples, making sure that person is really clear on the path that you guys are both traveling together on that path, and they have bought into it, and you guys are going together, because that just cuts down on a bunch of other conflict. Because I feel like as we've been going through some of this stuff, there's been some trade-offs, but we've been very clear on the path we want to go, and we have. Our biggest conflict usually is over what time we're going to eat, or where we're going to eat at,
or what we're going to eat.
But it's not over, hey, which direction we're traveling on the path, because we're very clear on that. So the clearer you can get, the easier it'll be.
The one thing that we didn't mention at all, but I think is really important, is like when we got married, we became a team. And so when we become a team, he has different strengths, I have different strengths, and so it's like you want to play to those things. And I think when you're on pursuit of your goals or building your plan, like build your plan based on your strengths. Like, and his role in this has been very different from my role. And like, full transparency moment, I did not like my job. So it was like, I decided when he was like, hey, I want to make this thing work, I was like, okay, I'm gonna hold it down for as long as possible. And man, did I hold it down and struggle a little bit, but it was part of the plan and it was part of my role at the time. And so now we're in a different season, we're doing different things. And so I think, getting clear even on your roles inside the relationship and who's doing what is also really helpful, and can aid to just having more supportive conversations versus like, well, I'm doing this or you're doing that, or whatever argument you might have consistently with your person. So that's something we didn't mention, but I would also add to this conversation too.
Awesome. Well, there you have it. That's part 2 of Love and Money. Once again, if you got some value from this video, go ahead and hit that like button for us, subscribe, ring the bell so that you can be notified when we come out with new videos. I hope you have a great day. Let's plan for success, and we'll see you next week.